Hello, welcome to Lesson 4 of the Robotics Society. In the last lesson, we learned about the physical setup of the Arduino board with the RGB light bulb that changes colors gradually. Today, we will go over the applicable concepts for the program behind this. First, we're going to need to know how to create variables of the type integer. Integers are a data type used by programmers to store whole numbers. To create an integer, you write int, then the name of the integer, and then the value that you're going to assign to it. So the name could be anything, the value could be any whole number, and int must be written for the program to understand that you want a variable that will store a whole number. We will also need arrays to keep track of the brightness values of the different colors. Arrays are a data structure, which is something that holds any data, that is accessed by indexes. If you wanted to create an array, you would write the type of the array, in this case which is int, the name of the array, which could be anything, and its length within square brackets. Int must be written for the program to know that you want to create an array of type integer. The name could be any name, and the length must be a whole number that is put into square brackets for the program to know that you want to create an array. When you create an array, you can store the elements at different indexes. So in this drawing here, all of these green squares are the elements in the array, and these numbers here from 0 to 9 are the indexes that you can use to access elements at their specific index. Counting in Arduino and most other programming language starts from 0. So if you wanted to access the 9th element, it would actually be the 8th element in the program, since the program is going to start counting from 0. So if I had an array named x of length 3, and I set the 0th index to 12, the first index to 53, and the second index to 43, I could access the different elements, the numbers in the array, by writing x and then the index of the element. For loops are used to loop through whatever statements are inside of them. They are defined with a variable with a name, which will be equal to some value, and then a condition, which is going to say that the variable will have to be smaller than a target, or will have to be bigger than a target, and then the variable will have to increase or decrease. So this would be an example of a for loop, where the variable I would start being equal to 0, it would be smaller than 8, and start increasing by 1. So here, if I had a loop that looked like this, the loop is going to iterate, or loop, until I is 1 less than 10. The loop is going to iterate while I is smaller than 10, which means that the loop is going to run until I is equal to 9. Every time the variable I increases, the statements in the loop will run once. Printing I inside of the loop here shows the pattern, in this case I increasing by 1, of the variable. So this is going to print all the whole numbers from 0 to 9. In the loop, the iterator, which is the variable that is increasing or decreasing, in the case of the example on the previous slide, which was named I, does not have to start with the value 0, nor does it have to increase by 1. It can increase by 1 or more by writing I plus equals, then the value you want it to increase by. It can decrease. If you wanted it to decrease by 1, you could write I minus minus, or to decrease by any whole number n, you would write I minus equals n. The variable I, which is initialized as the first part of the for loop initialization, could be set to any number. It does not have to be 0. Methods are defined with a structure of the return type, the name, and then the arguments that are going to be passed into it, with statements or logic inside of them. So an example of a method would be this method here called add. Add is going to take two arguments, A and B, and it's going to return the sum of its two arguments. And A and B could be of any data type, and in this case, since the method is returning an integer, these should be integer values and should be written as int A, comma, then int B. If a method is not going to return anything, meaning that it will most likely change something or print something, the return type instead of int would be void. Method arguments, which are here, are variables or other data that are given to the function or method for it to use for its calculations. Returning in methods is done by writing the word return, then the value of the same type as the return type specified in the declaration of the function. A method returning is like giving back the answer to the program after it has finished its calculations. A function would usually be of return type void, meaning there is nothing to return, if it is changing a variable that can be accessed from elsewhere or printing the answer out within itself. So to call a method, you write the name of the method, then two brackets with the values that you're going to pass in as the arguments. So for this method divide, which is going to divide the first argument by the second argument and return it, if we call it with the values 9 and 3, it should divide 9 by 3. And if we call it with 9 and 3, 9, which is the first argument called with, will turn into the A, and 3, which is the second argument, is going to turn into the B. And A within the method is going to be equal to 9, and B within the method is going to be equal to 3. And it will divide those values specified and return the answer. So all of the values that you pass into here, the first one, which is named A in the method, and the second one, which is named B in the method, are going to become these arguments respectively, and then the method will execute as if A is equal to the first value passed in and B will be equal to the second value passed into the method. These are all the concepts that you will need in order to program the RGB light. Thank you for watching, and if you have any questions, please feel free to email me.